You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 557. Tonight, we're going to celebrate the Phantom Menace 25th anniversary with a little game that we've called Fix It or Order 66 It. And what I mean by that is we are going to look at all the deleted scenes that were removed from the Phantom Menace and make a decision about whether or not, well, I want to do some analysis about it too, like talk about what was going on in the scene, the significance of it, maybe why it was included in there, and then kind of take a look at it and say, do we want to fix it? In other words, do we want to restore it? Should it be back in the release of the Phantom Menace, or does it deserve to stay on the cutting room floor? In other words, Order 66 It. So with me tonight, as always, is Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. I've been looking forward to the show like all week, honestly. It's been like a highlight of me. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel, because I think it's going to be fun to kind of look at this stuff.
I think so too. It's been a while since I've watched these deleted scenes, actually probably since the original DVD came out.
Right, yeah, yep.
I mean, it was kind of cool, like going, say, memory lane, them talking about what was cool about having a DVD is you could go back and finish all these things that you worked so hard for and that just don't quite fit in the movie. And usually you kind of see why, but it was a lot of fun to be able to go back and revisit this after 25 years. So really excited about this show. I wasn't expecting to be as surprised about this, and I'm also really excited about our Patreon episode right after this too. So it's gonna be a pretty fun night.
Yeah. Continuing on with that 25th anniversary celebration. So no end in sight. So before we get started, I know you want to say thank you to some special folks of ours.
And actually, we got a few more extra special shout outs this week as well, because there's been a lot of stuff. So first of all, shout out to Mr. Albert Padilla for doing an amazing job on the May the 4th Be With Y'all podcast that we just released. If you haven't gone to listen to that, all of the little sound effects, especially with the kids stuff, was like just had me rolling. Like I literally fell out of my chair one time with some of it. So a ton of work went into that. So a huge thanks to Albert for doing that. Of course, everyone at Silver Lake for, inviting us out to do that. But, kudos, my friend. That was really a really great job. It was a lot of fun to listen to. Imagine it was a lot of fun to make.
It was a labor of love. I think that edit took me, and I'm not even kidding you, probably about 12 hours. And a lot of that is just my inexperience with trying to find music and sound effects and converting that over. And I've gotten really good at it now. So, time will go. I could probably bring the time down, but it was a very long edit, but totally worth it. Like I really was pretty happy with how it came out myself. So thank you for that, Jonesy.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then, shout out to the maker who shared, he celebrated his 80th birthday on May the 14th. So George Lucas' birthday, May the 14th, 80 years old, if you can believe that. Wow, still looks pretty great for 80 years old, I think.
Still, running around kicking.
Yeah, and then happy birthday to the Cantina Cast. On May 16th, Cantina Cast turned 13 years old. So a huge shout out to Mike and all of our forefathers and everyone that's been involved with the show over the years. It's as much a celebration of the show, and a thank you to everyone who's been a part of this before us, and thank you to you for helping us continue this moving forward too. So that was really exciting to have the Cantina Cast birthday as well. And then today, happy birthday to the Phantom Menace of all days. 25 years ago today, the movie released. It was many, many hours ago, but it was pretty exciting that we'll actually do a show. Plan to do the show on the Cantina Cast birthday, but now we're going to do it on Phantom Menace birthday instead. So it seems pretty appropriate. But anyway, so a lot of great kind of birthday celebrations there. So pretty fun. But a huge thank you to all of our now part of the tribe members on Patreon: Danny, Rob, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Riss, Justin, Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, and Rita Reborn. And then our Delusions Grandeurs members, Rod, CJ, Steve, and Daz. Again, thank you all so much. We see all of you out in the live stream already. Rita Reborn, Steph, One Up versus CPU, Music Train, Greg from the Rebel Base Picard podcast, Lauren, and Alex so far. So thank you all for coming out. We hope you enjoy the show. We'd love to get your thoughts about whether we should fix it or Order 66, these deleted scenes.
Yeah. So I was joking with Jonesy that we're celebrating 13 years of the show. So we're about ready to have that talk with the kid, if you know what I mean. So I don't know which dad's going to deliver that message, or maybe we'll get Lauren, his mom, to step in and deliver that message or whatever. But no, it's been a great run so far. I mean, 13 years. We've been a part of most of that now, almost half of it at least. We're coming up on at least half of it. So
We've been listeners or involved for at least half of it. I think more than half of the active shows, because there was a hiatus there between 2011 and later on. So, but yeah, that's pretty cool. We've been around for a big chunk of it. And Lauren says that she would deliver the message. This is
Good.
approved.
It's always better when it comes from
Leave it to mom. Yeah.
Leave it to mom. Yeah, to do. So, all right. So, one other thing. So, in honor of the Phantom Menace, so I finally went out and bought the blue milk, and I have a glass of blue milk here with me tonight. I'm going to attempt to drink this. It's not an easy drink. It's not bad by any means. Like, if anybody's had a chance to taste this, it doesn't taste bad.
I heard it's
I've heard
super vanilla-y and sweet.
it is like if you took regular milk and took sugar cookies, like vanilla sugar cookies, and put it in a blender and mixed it until it was just really just a pure liquid form. That's exactly what this is. If you look on the back of the ingredients, it says the second ingredient is liquid sugar. It literally says liquid sugar. So I don't know. I may die of a diabetic coma here in just a few minutes, but I'm going to attempt to like take sips of this. But just
it's gonna be beautiful editing out of the mouse clicks after that. But and I think Greg's in the chat tonight too from the Rebel Base Card podcast, and I believe he did a show of trying out the blue milk as well, and came to a similar conclusion. Not bad, but really, really sweet. So go check Greg out over on the Rebel Base Card podcast.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart by any means. Okay, let's jump into this show. Let's see. I want to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen because I do have the video up of all the extra clips. Now, if you want, you can go out there. We'll put the link in the show notes. You can go out there and watch these deleted scenes. And the only ones I think there's two clips, very small clips that I included that we probably won't show because I didn't get a chance to cue them up. But they were from the DVD deleted scenes section of the DVD, and there's basically two small, very, very short clips, but they were things that stood out. I know when I sent one of them to you, you were like, oh yeah, I remember that, and it stood out in my mind, but it was never officially as part of the deleted scene. So, and I won't spoil it. You've probably heard about it. People have talked about it for a very long time now, but for the most part, yeah, everything that you're going to see tonight that we're sharing will be stuff that was shared as part of the official DVD releases or stuff that was cut out. So
yeah, no, the author who put these scenes together did take some liberties and tried to restore some scenes and paste some things and clean things up. So it is a little bit different than what you would see on the DVD or on Disney Plus, but it's still, you get the spirit of it pretty closely, and I think all the dialogue is there.
Yeah, and you had a chance to look at these, right? You saw them on the, what was it, the Disney Plus, and for the most part, these were all the same ones, yeah.
Yeah, all the same ones. There were a couple though. The Dawn Before the Race was not on there, so we'll talk a little bit about that one. There were two that I did not see on Disney Plus that were part of this, aside from the kind of DVD conversation you just mentioned that we'll talk about a little bit later on.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one we've got queued up here is called Trash Talking Droids, and there's basically, I won't do the audio because I don't want to pipe it through the system here, but you can kind of see what's going on here, and this is just as the Jedi are coming into, and they're greeted by TC-14. And you basically got two droids here. Droid 1, I don't know which one's Droid 1. We'll call the one that looks like a pit droid on the left-hand side there. We'll call him Droid 1. The one on the right, that's yellow, Droid 2. Droid 1 says, they must be important. The Viceroy sent one of those useless protocol droids to greet them. Then Droid 2 says, a Republic cruiser, that's trouble, don't you think? And then Droid 1 comes back and says, I'm not made to think. And that's literally the whole scene. They end up kind of looking at each other. You can kind of see the Jedi walking off there to your left, and he, puts his head up, and they walk off screen, and that's the end of it. So, again, not a big scene.
Right.
I was trying to wrap my head around, like, why would this even have been included? What was he trying to do here? I guess let me throw that to you first up. Any thoughts around that? And then give me your what you feel like is this something that you would want to have restored, or just Order 66 this sucker?
Oh my gosh, Order 66, this is pretty bad.
Just jump right to the...
Yeah, this one was pretty bad. I don't know really what the objective was, and it seems like it was pretty early cut because the visualizations on this are pretty rough still. But maybe it was just to try to introduce a little humor right on. But I mean, the feel of the first part of the movie is pretty somber and serious. It's trying to set the mood and the tone a little bit. So I think this would have really set it on a very different trajectory and made that opening sequence. I think you had some feedback that the editing already felt a little bit, pretty a bit herky jerky. Maybe the cutting wasn't quite up to snuff. when the movie settles in a little bit later. And I think this part probably would have contributed to that quite a bit of that inconsistency, if you will. But yeah, this one was pretty rough to watch.
Yeah, and I was, maybe it's an opportunity to show even more droids. Like they have no shortage of droids at all, so
Right.
I don't think they really needed to do that. Maybe if these droids had played a part later on or something else, but I think you're right. Like it just felt like this does feel like it doesn't need to be in the scene at all. I think it pulls away from that seriousness, the tone that they were trying to set. I went back and looked at and I didn't get a chance to do this with all of them because I haven't read the novel in forever. By the way, Lauren and I are going to be doing the novelization. We'll be covering the novelization of episode 1, I think in July 17th or something, much later on. But maybe it's June. Either way, it's coming up. I went back and looked at episode 1, the novel, and I did not see this scene in there with these droids. So this was something that was kind of exclusive to the movie. So all that said, I mean, it's rough. I'm sure it would have looked fine had they, went back and retouched up the CG and did everything better. But this is an Order 66 for me. Like there was nothing redeemable or valuable in my opinion as far as this. Now, if you're a droid, maybe you like this kind of stuff, but yeah. All right, here's one of the more interesting ones. So this is the waterfall sequence, and I'll let this play as I'm talking about it. But this is after they made it to the surface. Qui-Gon Jinn realizes that they're near the edge of a waterfall. Somehow the power's out now, unfortunately, and so they're kind of drifting towards the waterfall. And Qui-Gon Jinn pulls out this like Batman utility belt thing and pulls out a batarang or something. He pulls a harpoon out of some sort, fires it into the wall, and him and Obi-Wan Kenobi make their way across the rope. Jar Jar's left in there, and probably for comedic effect, he's sitting there like scrambling, not really sure what to do. They have to tell the Gungan that he needs to dive into the water. I don't know why, but he dives into the water. You get a quick sequence underwater where you can see Jar Jar swimming, and they finally come up as the bongo heads over the edge of the waterfall and crashes down below. So I guess, what are your thoughts on the scene? This is one of the more finished and polished scenes, so it felt like it was probably made it along the way, pretty far in before it got axed and cut. But thoughts on that? And would you want to fix this one or Order 66 it?
Like you said, it's pretty finished. I don't know there's a lot of fixing necessarily in the truest sense, but what did we included? I think some of the things I like about this scene is that we do just get a little bit more in the bongo and some of that, but I think it just doesn't fit pacing wise. They arrive on Naboo, they kind of go straight into hiding. Actually, the scene that's showing right now is the one that makes the least amount of sense to me. Is that they're just casually strolling up the steps to the front door when they're hiding in Naboo and things like that. So they probably looked at the scene in the sequence and were probably, thinking this doesn't really add anything. It kind of slows the movie down. It detracts a little bit, and it doesn't lend anything to what we need to tell or how they get to go find the queen or anybody else, I think. So it made sense. I think this is an Order 66 for me. I think this was a good cut. This is kind of a traditional cut, right? It's just something that, yeah, it's fine, it's cool, but does it add anything? No, we should probably just cut it out. We've already got a 2-hour plus movie. Some things just, end up not being there. But it was kind of cool to see the bongo outside of the water a little bit, though.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Man, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of halfway on this one because I get what you're saying. Like, you're right. It probably would pull. I mean, they'd have to edit some more if they just cut this out, or maybe cut the very end of it off, I should say, or something. I'm not sure. The transition part I haven't really thought that through. But there was something about I guess the resourcefulness of the Jedi, knowing that they had these types of things. They had the rebreathers. We were like, whoa, they kind of carry those around. And in this scene, they've got this little harpoon thing that they've got around there. So all of that's kind of neat stuff. And it's kind of a throwback to, not necessarily Luke Skywalker in episode 4, because that was really the Stormtroopers utility belt that they had. But just something about that going old school type style stuff is kind of cool. I don't know that the physics work for me here. Like if you've got a tide line and the current's going down, the ship would suddenly just start pulling, right? Physics would then kick in and it would just end up falling over anyways. But maybe that motor spinning in the background was just enough to keep it, moving forward. But aside from the physics of it all, it was a cool scene. But I would say, all right, I guess you talked me into this, and I'm gonna go with Order 66. As cool as it is, didn't really need to be in here.
Yeah, so. It's also a little more inconsistency with the wetness of the clothing. We had talked about this on the Fact Boy show. Some of the guys had talked about the when they come into the Gungan city, the clothes are dry, but the faces are still wet. I think here you see a little bit with, I think it's Obi-Wan's robe. In one scene is dry and then it's wet again. So again, not necessarily a finished sequence. It's hard to hold that against them, but
Yeah.
some of that consistency would have looked a little bit weird. And honestly, why Jar Jar takes so long to get out of this thing is probably what drags the scene on a little bit to where it's just not, it's right here. Yeah. See, Obi-Wan's is more or less
He's
dry.
drenched. Yeah.
Yeah. Qui-Gon is
Obi-Wan's
drenched, but Obi-Wan
Qui-Gon's
is,
dry.
no, other way around. Qui-Gon's drenched.
Sorry.
But,
Yes.
yeah, Obi-Wan is dry. It just doesn't make any sense. So again, it's just little inconsistencies like that. You just don't need that. People nitpick that stuff.
It's the Jedi hair product that is working there, preventing them from getting wet.
Hey, when you have short hair, stuff dries really fast. I do get that.
Yeah.
That's what I miss about short hair, actually.
By the way, for those of you that are with us on the live show, feel free to chime in on whether you guys want to fix this Order 66. And I'll throw them up on the screen here. I know Greg chimed in earlier on the droid one, said this scene should be Order 66. And let's see, he's also chimed in on this one, says, seems like after the planet core action that this is a little unnecessary. Order 66, this one as well.
Yeah,
So-
it's a little redundant, I think, in that one. Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, sorry guys. I know that was...
Well, we're 0 for 2 on deleted scenes here, but they don't worry. There are going to be some that we're going to say is coming back in. Music Train is also saying 66, both of them so far.
Yeah. Now, it would be interesting to say, like, okay, well, would you get rid of this scene? Like, if you kept this scene, what scene would you get rid of? Ooh, maybe that's a follow-up show.
That's a lot more difficult, yeah.
That is more difficult. Because I think there are some things in the Phantom Menace, so I was like, I don't really need to see that. But, all right. Anyways, I'll let the scene play out, and we'll go on to the next one. Let's see. The next one is going to be, is this the Kickster scene that's coming up here?
This is the Dawn Before the Race.
Oh, Dawn Before the Race. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah, Kitster coming up on the Yopies.
All right. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to fast forward this sucker here. Yeah, nice little comedic bits there.
It's the part that there's like strolling casually through the city, but
Yeah,
they're,
like, well,
they're wanted. They're wanted people. I don't understand that.
They are wet though. I'll give them credit for that. They are still
they're,
at least
They're
wet.
wet in that scene, yeah. It is a beautiful shot of Theed there.
You know what scene's not in here? Sorry, just as a quick before we go on the next one. The scene that's not in here that I think is in the book is the whole scene with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi coming up to him, and he's basically talking to him about how he got his lightsaber wet again, and how he wasn't able to ignite it, which is a little bit later on. But that
When they're
one,
running, when they land on the planet,
when they're playing on
running through the
Naboo.
force. Yeah.
Yep. So anyways, that's going to be fun to discuss. All right, so in this scene here,
We have Obi-Wan Kenobi rolling up on. Oh wait, no, that's not Obi-Wan. Sorry.
now this is Kitster. So he's arrived here. I guess this is just before the pod race happens. So this is like early morning. You've got C-3PO, you've got R2-D2. They're sitting there kind of polishing up Anakin's pod racer. Padme's walking out, and she walks over to Anakin, who's fallen asleep. Apparently he's been working on this thing all night long and just crashed here on this little bench. She walks up and tells him that his mother wants him to come in and clean up before leaving. I'm like, that's a hard mom. This kid's been working all night, and she's going to make him clean before he leaves. And then when Annie asks where Qui-Gon Jinn is, Padme tells him that he's at the arena with Watto and Jar Jar. And then the scene ends with 3PO talking about how they want Anakin's pod racer to be the shiniest out there. So they're more concerned about the look and the aesthetic of the pod racer. And that's really the end of the scene. But I mean, more screen time for Kitster here than anything else. But I guess, what did you think of this scene?
You know, it's kind of interesting. I like the banter with Obi-Wan, with C-3PO and R2-D2. So I kind of like that. The pod racer, when we first introduced it to it, is exceptionally dirty. So we knew it got cleaned up. So this does bridge a little bit of that gap of what we see when they get to the arena when they're pulling it in. And so the rest of the scene is, quite honestly, it's pretty forced. The acting is not super great. And so this is another one where I'm comfortable with this being Order 66. Although I could see like it's a short scene, which I think works if it were to be kept. But again, ultimately, if you're trying to keep pacing and going, I think this is probably a smart cut. And again, the scene of Kitster riding up, maybe it's not finished, so it looks a little bit rough on the CGI front. But
Yeah, I would say it's not finished. It is rough still.
yeah, but I do like also that with Padme's dialogue that it establishes that Qui-Gon did leave early, which again isn't very clear in the movie, in the final version of the movie. So it does bridge that gap too. But again, I don't think any of those were really egregious to where you needed to keep it, I guess. But what about you?
I had this one as a fix-it, just for honestly, for all the reasons you said. Like, it bridges that gap, it explains where Qui-Gon's at. it gives C3PO and R2D2 more screen time. It gives Kitzer more screen time. I don't know. Like I say, keep it. But then once you put it in the movie, I don't know how it would transition. Maybe there's something else that goes instead of it, or something gets cut shorter instead of it to kind of make it transition a little bit better.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I felt like it was fine. It was a nice way to kind of see Anakin as well as this cute little boy. That's the thing too. Like a lot of the scenes, well, not a lot. A couple of the scenes are really around their Anakin scenes, and they were cut out, and they do a lot to kind of explain how good he is. And I think that was the whole purpose of the Phantom Menace. You could see very concrete examples of that, but maybe they were just maybe they looked at it and said, okay, we've already got enough of that. We've already established that he is a very sweet, innocent boy, not who he is by the time we get to Revenge of the Sith. But I'm all for it. I think I liked all these scenes with him and as Jake Lloyd, and I forget the actor's name on Kitzer already. But yeah, I would say just keep it. It's fine.
Okay.
It's just gonna add more time. Let's see. Maybe we'll play on this one too a little bit here. Let's see. Going to the comments. Let's see. Greg says, "Roll-based card says I actually kind of like this pod scene. Also seems far along in the process. I think they could have fixed it." So there you go. One vote for that one. All right. This is the wager scene. So this is for the most part the exact same thing, but they removed basically what I would call dialogue that was maybe redundant, if anything else. Like I don't think there's nothing really. I don't know. Nothing really stands out like, oh, they would cut this. It's just Watto and Qui-Gon Jinn talking the entire time. So let me just kind of play this, and the lines that they've added here. Let's see, where is? Sorry, I went too far here. Watto says, "A pod for slaves, perhaps not just one. The mother maybe. The boy isn't for sale." That's a line that they cut out. Qui-Gon Jinn says, "He's a small boy. He can't be worth that much." Qui-Gon then there's some waiting. There's kind of a pause. Qui-Gon then just says, "For the fastest pod racer ever built," like he's still trying to negotiate with Watto. And then Watto says, "No, no, no, no." Qui-Gon says, "Both, or the bets are off." So he almost threatens him. He's basically calling his bluff, or calling a bluff, saying, if you don't do this, then all bets are off. We get the line then that we hear in the movie where Watto says, "No pod is worth 2 slaves, not by a long shot." But then he adds on 1 slave or nothing. And then we cut to Jar Jar, who's kind of thinking about it. Qui-Gon says, "The boy then," which is in the original cut. And then Watto has another line that was cut out where he says, "Haha, I don't think so. The boy isn't for sale." And then we end with Qui-Gon saying, "Well, we'll let fate decide." Or sorry, Watto saying, "Well, we'll let fate decide." And he pulls out the chance cube. So those are the lines that were cut out. I guess your thoughts on the scene, and did they have to be here? Why do you think they cut them out, kind of thing?
I agree with what you said. I think it's a little redundant. I think so. There's some good parts in here. I think it also establishes that Qui-Gon did try to fight for Shmi a little bit, like for both of them, which I think it was really good that it established. I'm with you. I think the redundancy of it did make it a little clunkier. It also didn't make sense. Like Watto almost started negotiating with himself, where he started to reconsider his position and then brought the chance cube out. And actually, I think the cut that we got in the movie was actually really, really good. I think the way that they did it kept it moving. I think it also made sure that it was, I don't know, it just really flowed well as well. And it didn't get stuck on itself in any kind of way. And it just felt a little bit more natural. This one did feel a little bit more forced and just a little bit, like they're just trying to fit too much into the scene. And I think where they ended up was just very, very clear and cut. But I do like that it brought a little bit more that Qui-Gon didn't just go after Anakin. He was trying to go for both Shmi and Anakin, but it just wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm. Or you say keep it or cut it?
I'm gonna go with Order 66, and I think it's not enough to add more to it. And I think the cut that they ended up on was actually quite good. And when you compare them side by side, it does feel like night and day. Like what we got in the movies is the better version.
So I'm gonna go with fix it, but only because of what you said. Like this really changes, in my opinion. I think it does change what Qui-Gon says when he's talking about he tried to, but Watto wouldn't let him, kind of thing. You don't really get that. I mean, there's one line in there where he's the original line, about the boy and his mother, and then Watto says 2 slaves, no pod's worth 2 slaves. It jumps from there to there, and that's it. You don't see Qui-Gon put much of a fight up at all. And by adding these lines back in here, you realize that yes, either he's doing it because it's the right thing to do, or maybe he does understand that, look, this is going to be pretty severe to remove this kid from his mom. There's already a connection there. Yeah, there's an attachment, and he's trying to protect that because he knows how important that's going to be for Anakin at an older age, kind of thing. So I would say, maybe not all of it, but at least the first part of it there.
Yeah, if they did, I think they'd still have to tweak this scene a little bit to probably still trim some stuff. And you got one up versus CPU on your side here. He says fix it. Greg is saying order 66 it though.
Yeah.
So a bit of a mixed scene here. I think I'm with you. I think they could probably fix parts of it and work it back in, and it would still work pretty well without losing that flow that we got in the original, in the theatrical cut.
Yep. All right. Well, that's and I imagine people would be probably split on this one. I don't think there's an easy way around it, but all right, let's look at the next scene as that plays on here. I was just trying to think if there's anything else that I had in my notes. There's not. Okay. So the next one is going to be the first of a couple of different sequences that are around the pod race. And so this one's going to be a little bit more difficult. There's some stuff in here that definitely has dialogue. Some of it does not at all. And it's just, we'll have to talk through it.
Part of it is cringeworthy.
Part of it is cringeworthy. But the first one here, let's see, we've got, this is a grid sequence. So they're introducing all of the pod racers, as you can kind of see here. And let me see if they got, all of this so far is pretty much the same stuff, right? I had in here, it looks like at one point it sounds like he says there's Elon Musk, and that's not at all what he says. This is all from the...
He wasn't in our lexicon quite yet.
No, not yet. Although I'm sure he wanted to be. So all this is the same here. There's Sebulba. Yeah, and there's all that.
One of the things they did during the sequence is they cut to the crowd even more than they did in the original, in the theatrical cut, which was always a little bit forced because they're clearly only some of them are real and many of them are CGI. So it was a little more disorienting this time around.
Yeah. And I meant to honestly cut all this out. There's, some of these are the same actors, see the same characters that we've seen. So, all right, here we go. So this is, is this Dud Bolt?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. We need to do like a whole episode on just these guys here. All right. So Dud Bolt, where he says, and back again, it's the mighty Dud Bolt with that incredible machine, the Volpatrine 327. And he kind of does his little bow. And then we get the very first one that was cut out. And this one says, a newcomer moving up from the minor leagues, first time, Mars Goal. I didn't put the real names in here. I put what I heard. I'm sure they have real names, and I haven't looked at them all, but he's a creepy looking character.
Yeah, very awkward too. He's just like, hi there.
Yeah.
So some of the things I like about this sequence is this kind of plays through a little bit is that I think it's cool to see the rest of the field. Like how many did we get in the theatrical cut? We got 6 or 7, I think, introduced to us, something like that. It was a fair number, but not everybody. And I think this one does do a good job of like showing you all of the other players that are in it. So it is kind of interesting to see through this sequence here of introductions. Although the part I really like about it is a little bit later on.
I'm sorry, that's not the right dialogue. This guy is the one that I thought they said Elon Musk. They said always a threat on this course. Sorry. I don't know what this guy's real name is.
That's all right. No one remembered it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, he does have a name, and he's included in just about everything, especially in like in the book and all that. But he's a really weird looking character. So anyways, it says, here's Elon Musk. We'll just call him that. Always a threat on this course. Now we get the Dud Bolt. That's him right there.
Right.
And then the next line is, and back again, it's the mighty Dud Bolt with the incredible machine, the Volpatrine 327, which I think this scene was in there.
Yes, I believe so.
I think it's in the original one. So that scene was cut out. This one's is in the release. More crowd scenes. There's that one elephant looking thing that keeps doing the same dance every single time they show him. I don't know why. And then we get, this is the scene here, right? Yeah, this little guy here. Yeah, so this is where he says, a newcomer moving up from the minor leagues, first time, Mars Ghoul, something like that. He's kind of like a duckling, swan-looking character of sorts.
Yeah, I think he's like a goose.
He's like a goose, yeah.
Very angry, right. Yeah.
Now, the funny bit here is that Jar Jar is standing in front of him, and so the crowd goes crazy, and for whatever reason, Jar Jar thinks that they're cheering for him, and so he gets up, he holds his hands up like you see right here, and then this little Mars guy gets mad because he's like, hey, wait a minute, that's my, roar, cheer, or whatever. So he gets mad at Jar Jar, and Jar Jar says, "Uh-oh," and that's the end of that little quick scene.
I do like the change in the focal lens though, where they're focusing in. I thought that was kind of a nice little touch with Jar Jar in the crowd.
Yeah, he's a cute little design. We
guess.
don't see him either. Like this guy and the last guy, we never see them in the actual pod race.
Right.
There is the next one here that's just heartbreaking, by the way, that we will see in the pod race itself here in just a minute. Okay, so there's the end of that. Okay, and then this is the first. So this is the little guy here. What was his name? Rox Turan. He dies. Okay, let me just say that Rox Turan dies in the pod race. Like he blows up, and never thought much of it. But when you go back and watch these deleted scenes, it's rough because it says this scrappy little guy does not know the meaning of fear. It's Rox Turan. He sits there and he screams. And then it cuts over. This is the saddest thing in the world.
This is terrible.
It cuts over and it said the announcers say his whole family is here today to cheer him on. We understand Mrs. Torrell has just got out of the hospital, so we wish her and her family. And so, like they create this character. His family's here. The mom just had a baby, and he's going into the pod race, and then he dies, which makes this whole scene like terrible. Like it's actually upsetting to hear. But I guess what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, it was really cringy anyway, like the introduction of the family. But yeah, that part they had to cut because that would just be awful. Like set them up and then just kill them off, and all those kids are fatherless and orphaned. But I don't know. It's also a little bit weird. They just keep zoning back. They follow up with her too. Like they pan back over to her a little bit later on. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
why are we spending so much time with this character? I like he gets all mean and everything, but I just didn't understand this.
I don't know. It's brutal. I'll just kind of spoil it. I'm probably for fix it, but I just cut that out. Like I don't want to see the family and understand that they watched their dad die on live television or live holo. I mean, that's just, I don't know. That's pretty gruesome, quite honestly. Look and seeing the mom like hugs the kid over there. All right, here's the next one. It says he's not good looking, but he's not shy. Bugsy Rees, Bugsy Rees or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of see his character design there. Not the coolest. I don't even know if they've ever introduced this character in Star Wars. Maybe they have, but this is like particularly odd.
Yep, we got Modal Dan.
Is it really them in the modal nodes? Like, I don't understand if it's them or did they show up? Like, why are they cheering this guy on? And of course, they get up, and what would they naturally do as a band? They get up and start playing, which I think is kind of
fun little cameo to throw him in there, right?
Weird. Yeah. I don't know. He salutes them, gives everybody a thumbs up. I don't know. I just find it odd that the band would be there. There's no history between these guys, at least not that they've established. So, but I guess there's history there. Maybe these are his buds.
Maybe they're just fans.
Maybe he was a member and they kicked him out, and but they still love him and they're just still there to support him. I don't know.
Maybe he's got a great backstory and they're inspired by him.
Yeah. This scene's in there. This is hoping for a big win today. Ordy Mandrell with his record-setting pit droid team, and we get the Three Stooges bit going on here where they're poking each other and all that stuff. Right. There's Anakin being introduced. That's
a local
all
boy.
stellar. What's that? A local boy.
A local boy. I don't know. I like the way that's delivered.
I think this scene, I don't remember if this is new or not now.
I think this is new.
It doesn't look finished, so I would say new.
Yeah.
But this is like just minor like ambient stuff that's happening. You've got a guy pulling an Ethiopia across Sebulba's racer. He's pulling it right by there. You can see Rondo or
Ronto, I think.
Mike Rondo. Yeah.
Mike Rondo.
You can see one of those in the background. And then we cut over to this, and there's no dialogue in this. So let's stop here because I would say that last one, I would say just order 66 it. All right, fine, just get rid of it. I mean, those guys don't ever feature in any parts of the pod race.
Right.
And I think it's just absolutely sad what's happening with Rox Turan. So just get rid of it all. But here on this one, though, I like all this stuff. Like this is just stuff that's happening. They're showing you more of the racers. I can see where people would feel like it's a little too much. Like we've already established that they're very loud, they're very powerful. We've already seen them all, but there's just something so cool. Like it's I'd say leave it in here, and I'll just kind of let this play. And you can probably tell, like you can kind of see people running around here. A lot, they're getting the pod racers going. They're revving up stuff. The engines are revving. They're cutting across different people. They're flicking switches left and right. But I love all this stuff. Like I really wish they would kind of had left all this stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think all the stuff previous you cut, I think this is the stuff you keep. So I think this is kind of a partial fix it. And again, the close-ups of the engine, with the soundstage in the movie theater and stuff, it's meant for this. And of course, it plays right into the whole, 1950s, road racer type of thing and cruising and all that stuff. And, all of the things that George Lucas grew up with. So I like this part quite a bit. It was a lot of fun to kind of crank up and hear all of the engines revving and getting the close-ups here. I thought the camera angles were a bit interesting.
Yeah, you can see them you can see opening the flaps there. The turbines are spinning up. Right, they just keep showing you all the pod racers, which I think is great. Like, because we just don't get that much. We don't get like this, like right there. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's some really cool designs that we just don't see otherwise, or they're just in the background or in passings here.
Yeah.
So while this is playing in the chat, Alex says to fix it, the scenes are goofy, but they have heart. Well,
I think he's probably talking about all of them.
Well, until they kill the guy, but whatever, I guess. Yeah. And then one of versus EP says a lot of this kind of looks like they're just showing off the CG, and that's probably true. I think the last part, I think this part here, this sequence, is probably just more George Lucas doing the things that he loved as a kid, and that he grew up with, and just what he enjoyed. So, you have all the scenes with the actual close-ups of the pod racer. We also, so this scene here, I can't remember this name. He's the one that's smashing on the screen in the theatrical cut when that's
Ben Quadraneros.
Yeah, Ben Quadraneros. Yeah, we just lost his power coupling.
Yeah,
and so I think that one, to see him already struggling with it was actually kind of a nice touch too.
All right, well that's the last of them there. They all take off. All right, so the next one is going to be again more scenes that are happening in the. So, or I think we're both in agreement that we would fix that one. Yeah,
we'd fix the last half of it, right?
Yeah, right. The second half of it.
Right.
This is another one that I would say keep it. This is during the pod race itself, and we get to see the big thing about this one. There's a line earlier on when Kitzer's talking about, he's like, "Hey, maybe this time you'll finish," or whatever it is, and then Padme's like, "What? You've never finished a race?" And he's like, "No, not really," kind of thing. And he said, "It's not my fault." So Boba flashed me with his whatever it was.
Right.
I'm trying to remember the name of it now. I have it in my notes, forgot already. But anyways, he says, he flashed me with his vents. That's what he said. He flashed me with his vents. And you don't think much of it. But had they left this sequence in there and some of the other scenes, another scene a little bit later, you get to understand that Sebulba has on his pod racer, he's got these vents that he literally, when he opens them up, it jettisons fire out the sides, which is probably super illegal, right? But it certainly makes sense of why he's been number one for so long. You can see it right there. He takes this guy out here. I think that was Clegg, actually, which I didn't realize that was how he went out, because I don't think they didn't edit that in there.
Right.
So that's one scene. You also get to see these droids here. They're dropping these little aerial pit droids, and their whole job is to go around and just pick up all the scrap that's been dropped. Likely before the Jawas make their way down here, which you'll see here in a little bit as well. But that does kind of give it some depth. I don't know, maybe this pulls away or detracts from it, but I like this little sequence where Anakin has to navigate between them, and he ends up taking one of the droids out, just runs right through it, honestly, in that little scene there.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think this is important, I think, to see. I'm kind of a partial fix-it on this one, too, because I think showing Sebulba's dirtiness of the way he plays, also, some people might not feel the same about needing to see what Anakin was talking about and referencing, but I think it just shows you that Sebulba plays dirty. Mm-hmm. And I think the part I don't need to see was probably the crew out there picking up the scraps. I don't know if that added anything to it, but what we're coming to here in just a second is actually kind of funny.
Yeah, and then we get this is Bugsy, that other guy, Bugsy Turan, or no, Bugsy Reese, I guess is his name.
Yeah, he didn't last very long in the race, yeah.
No, you can see him there. This is the guy that had the Cantina band out there. Again, more showcasing his engines, though. That was kind of cool. This is another scene here where, there's a pod racer that's here on the ground that's sitting there burning. The Jawas are coming out, ever the opportunists, heading out there to start picking up all the scraps. And then you've got the sand people who are taking cheap shots at them and firing at them while they're trying to steal all these pieces.
Yeah,
And
this is just funny, right? I mean,
yeah,
the Jawas are out there trying to scavenge, and the Tusken Raiders using this as more entertainment. And the theatrical cut, we just get, I think, them taking one last pot shot at Anakin. You don't really see too much of it. Again, it's an okay cut. You don't have to keep this stuff, but I think it was kind of silly, and it just shows you that hey, they didn't just leave, right? Yeah, they're still there, and we get more of the yelling and stuff like that. It does look a little bit awkward of them shooting, but Jawas are going to be Jawas, so.
mm-hmm.
I was pretty okay with this, but I'd like to see this one kept back in. And again, we're not really adding much to the second lap to where we're extending the time. We're really probably just cutting 10 seconds worth of material, maybe 15 seconds, something like that. We'd be adding back in.
Yeah, it's really not much in the grand scheme of things. So it is curious why they pulled it off or why they pulled it out.
You have to be pretty judicious when you're making the movie, and you have to make some really tough calls. And I think that's one good thing that Rick McCallum and George Lucas talk about in the DVD is that you have a lot of stuff that you love and that you think is great, but for pacing and everything else, you just they've got the eye of what it needs to do, and maybe when you leave it in, it does make it feel like it's not an 8-minute sequence, it's now a 10-minute sequence or whatever it might be, right? So you got to make tough calls sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it does add up. I mean, if anything else, it establishes at least this sand person is a terrible shot. He hit nothing the entire time.
I'm glad you pointed out too, because I'm like, man, this actually degrades my thinking of Tuscans because I always viewed them as pretty good shots and skills of their trade of being able to hunt and things like that. And this made me think twice about that statement.
Well, I mean, they hit a couple of think about this. They hit pod racers going at the speed they were going at several times in this, right? Yet these little Jawas that are moving no more than probably half a mile a minute are like just fine. He's like shooting all around him. He can't hit a single one of them.
And he's trying too.
He's trying. He's like, blast you Jawas and your quick movements. I don't know what he's yelling here, but all right. So that's one scene, and this is the scene here where we get to see Sebulba take another shot at Anakin, where he opens up his vents there and flashes him with the fire, and Anakin, I guess he hits the brakes, and so he's not hit by it for this time.
Yeah, he kind of pulls back and away to avoid the flame. Yeah.
All right. So what do you think about all that? Anything you want to keep? Anything you want to get rid of?
I don't know that I need to see him attacking Anakin. I like that he did it to somebody else that we'd see it, but that when I say that, I'm okay with Anakin showing that he learned that lesson and not getting taken surprised by it again. So I'm okay with that. I think they can keep that in too.
Yeah, I would say keep the vent stuff. I think I love that it's it makes sense now when you think about it.
Right.
Or when you hear it played back or whatever, seen it back. Sand people will probably kill that. The droids running out to pick up the garbage. I don't know. Cut that. I don't really need that. So I think maybe just the Sebulba stuff, keep that. I'd say fix it. Other stuff, Order 66, all that crap.
Yep, I agree with you.
All right, here's one of the better scenes I think that we've got here. This is a big one.
You continue to tell me that, and I'm just surprising because I just don't. Actually, I'm not surprised that you love this scene, but I want to hear your explanation of why this needs to be kept, because I have a feeling you're going to want this to be kept and fixed.
Well, and this is the scene between, we've got Greedo and Anakin fighting here. It opens with some more scavenger droids. You kind of see those. I want to say, also, by the way, there's a hot air balloon here in the background. Right. I know that may not sound significant, but when you play like SWTOR and some of the other games, like Tatooine has traditionally, Legends had these hot air balloons that fly around. And we actually got to see them for the first time, I think, in this scene, obviously. But let me show real quick here. They are right. Ugh, this is killing me. There you go. You can kind of see them in the background there.
Right.
There's that one. There's one back there. So I like that. But yeah, this is a scene where after the fight, Greedo runs out, calls Anakin a cheater, and you got Anakin beating the snot out of Greedo while he's sitting here on the ground.
Beating the snout out of Greedo?
Yeah, snout out of him. Qui-Gon Jinn walks up, says, "What's all this about?" Anakin says, I cheated. Qui-Gon says, "Did you?" And Anakin says, "No." And then Qui-Gon says, "Do you think he cheated?" Asking Greedo. Greedo says, "Yes, I do." And then Qui-Gon says, "Well, Annie, you know the truth. You'll just need to tolerate his opinion. Fighting will not change it." And then Wald then turns. Wald is the one that's played by Warwick Davis, the other Rodian. Wald turns to Greedo and says, "You better watch it, Greedo, or you're going to come to a bad end," kind of thing. You can see it right there.
All right. Tell me why this needs to be kept, Halbert.
I don't think it needs to be kept.
Oh, really?
No, I don't. It needs to go. This ruin. So I get the whole, I don't remember where I heard this. I may have read it. Maybe I made it up. But I don't think you keep this because I think it tarnishes the image. Now, what it does do is play to this, okay, well, he's got a edgier side to him. He's got a darker side. But I want that to be solely from the fact that he has been detached from his mother and not anything else. Like, I don't like the dark side of Anakin being shown here. Again, it just doesn't feel right for me. I like the scene. I mean, I think the scene's kind of cool. It may be a little bit on the nose that we bring Greedo of all people back. Like, I don't like, maybe you're trying to establish that this kid's always had a problem. And later on, he finds a fitting end behind Han's blaster. I don't think you need to do that either, but it's kind of, it's a nice little touch. But yeah, I would say no, I'd say Order 66, this one.
Oh, okay, I'm surprised. I knew how excited you were to talk about it. I figured you were going to keep it. I'm actually, for a lot of the same reasons. It just doesn't fit very well either. I think it's just it's kind of abrupt. Like, why would they do this? We see them later. It's Anakin celebrating with the money they got from celebrating the pod racer, with Qui-Gon, and then some other things. So it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And if they were to left this in, I'm with you. I think we're trying to build Anakin up here, that he is a bit pure of heart, and he gets frustrated and he wants to defend like justice, like he does when he's talking about Padme when she says, "You're a slave, I'm a person," and.
Mm-hmm.
I think keeping that pure right now in this movie is kind of important. I'm with you. I think this is really something you have to do for Anakin. And I think this was probably just a way to work Greedo in. And it was kind of silly and kind of funny. Like, this is going to be the end of you if you keep starting fights, if you keep picking fights, if you keep doing these stupid things. Yeah, exactly. But again, pretty on the nose. And this is one that definitely could remain on the cutting room floor, I think.
Yeah. Let's see. Anakin punched first.
That he did.
Alex says after school special. He says 66 it. One Up versus CB says Order 66 it. No kids UFC. Look at Greg with a different opinion here. I like the concept of showing Anakin's anger, but maybe not with Greedo. He says fix it. So he wants to have it back in.
And I think to your point, I know we got to get moving, but I think you made a great point though. It's more about Anakin's grief and Anakin missing his mom, of what starts to build the fear and create some of the problems that start to really take hold in Anakin, not things like this.
Mm-hmm. This is farewell to Jira. And this is a scene where I felt like they could add this in. They could have left this in here, but if you had to get rid of something, I think it makes sense, because this is one of those scenes where I feel like all they're doing is adding to what we already know about Anakin, what we've already established about Anakin, and that is he's a very good boy. But this scene here, Anakin walks up to her, says, "I'm freed." She says, "Oh," this is Jira, the old lady. He hands her some money, says, "Here, buy yourself a cooling unit with this, or else I'll worry about you." She says, "Can I give you a hug?" Anakin gives her a hug. She says, "Oh, I'll miss you, Annie. You're the kindest boy in the galaxy. You take care." He says, "Okay, I will." Now, up until that part, I would say like that.
Yeah, gut all of that. That
Order
was
66, all of that.
That was not good.
This part here,
this is necessary.
Fix it. Like, why did they remove this? I don't understand.
All right, so let's paint this real quick. So there's a probe droid that comes up just as Anakin is leaving Jira, right? And they start following Qui-Gon and Anakin down the streets. Qui-Gon senses it, whips out the lightsaber, and slices it in two. They investigate it, and he's not really sure. You probably have some of the dialogue there, I guess.
Yeah, he says, Anakin says, "What is it?" And he says, "A probe droid, very unusual, not like anything I've seen before." And he says, "Come on." And then they run off, which is like key and critical. Yes,
because later on, and this is why I think this scene is so important. One, we have very clear evidence of when they were found and when they were identified by Darth Maul. But two, when they're running, when they encounter Darth Maul towards the ship, it makes more sense why they're running now, because that part has no context whatsoever. And you're like, why didn't they just ride the Eopies or whatnot? Which again, they probably left those in town, back to their owners. But still, it just makes so much more sense now that they were running. I think this last half of the scene should be fixed. I think this is probably one of the clear examples of something that needs to be put back in the movie. I think it works.
Like I can see, like, I mean, maybe this is one sequence. I guess it is technically one sequence. But I mean, I could even see it
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You could cut this, like you could cut right. I mean, they show they kind of established the probe droid there on the left-hand side. It's already there. So it does make its entrance here. Like, it identifies him while he's talking to Jira.
Yeah.
Either way, that's like what? I don't know, 15 seconds. Just leave this whole thing in there. Like, I still don't get why they would cut this out.
Yeah.
And there are
Yeah.
there are plenty of other scenes, honestly, that I would say just cut that 15 seconds off that scene and leave this one back in there, in my opinion. But
Right. Yeah, I agree with you.
but yeah, I mean, it speaks to like Qui-Gon's sensing abilities, right? Out of nowhere, he just turns around and whips it down. I love that he does another quick lightsaber ignite and then, switch off kind of thing. Like it happens in a split second, no pun intended there. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I'd say leave this scene in there. Don't know why they cut that out of there.
Yeah, this is a good one. I'm excited about the next one too. I like the little TV antenna they have attached to the Pro Droid.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the little rabbit ears.
Greg says, "Oh my, keep the second part with the Probe Droid." Yep. This is kind of a cool little, fading shot here. I don't know.
Yeah,
It looks
this
like
is
a
a great-
walker.
This is a great ship or whatever this is, or walker type. This is really cool.
The legs look very familiar, especially when you get to
Yep.
the ATTE in Clone Wars that we're going to see a lot of here, or Attack of the Clones and then the Clone Wars, right?
Yep.
So, all right, enough of that scene here. All right, next one is, let's see, battle on the boarding ramp. And so this is basically Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul. It's an extended scene. The scene normally ends in the theatrical version with Qui-Gon jumping up onto the ramp. He goes inside and they fly off, and then you get Darth Maul in the theatrical run. You see Darth Maul kind of standing up, which always was weird to me. Like I didn't understand what was going on there. I thought maybe he's was out of breath, took a knee or whatever. This scene explains it.
Yeah.
After Qui-Gon jumps onto the ramp, Darth Maul follows him, jumps onto the ramp as well. They kind of have a quick fight. What's going on in that scene, by the way?
This is where go watch the Disney Plus version of this, because the Disney Plus version is actually better.
What is this?
I don't know. This is where the author of the YouTube video is trying to make some things a little fancier, maybe to get
Okay.
around copyright. I don't know.
I have no idea. But yeah, like he jumps on here where you can kind of see it right there, and they kind of have a quick battle while they're on the ramp itself. And then maybe it's clear in the Disney version, I don't know, but it looks like Qui-Gon either pushes him off, kicks him off the ramp of some sort.
Right.
But it ends with Qui-Gon with Darth Maul landing on the ground like that, and then he stands up when it cuts to the scene that we've seen so many times in the Phantom Menace.
Makes so much more sense. And again, why not leave that in? Maybe they didn't like the angles they had. Maybe the finishing was going to be a little bit tough. I don't know, but to me, this just seems like it brings a little more to the fight too. And when Qui-Gon falls back exhausted, it makes more sense. When Darth Maul stands up, it makes more sense, because I'm with you. When in the theatrical version, like you just don't understand. It works well enough, I think. Like they think you get away with it, but I think it just makes more sense if Qui-Gon jumps on a ship and gets away.
Mm-hmm.
That just seemed a little too easy, in some ways, unless they were tracking it or something to that effect. But I think this really rounds the scene out. This is definitely a keeper for me. This is definitely something that needs to be fixed.
I would fix this thing all day long, honestly, with you on that one.
This
This
next
is a
one's an
quick
interesting one, though. Yeah.
Yeah, Bail Organa of Alderaan. So this is during the trial, if you will, right before Padme calls a vote of no confidence in or Chancellor Valorum. And they have a quick scene there. You can kind of see it where they show Bail Organa. Not Bail. I forget his name. It's the senator from Organa, and you can see the group here is from Organa. They cut all this out. Like they don't even show these guys here in the movie a little bit later,
Right.
in the full version. But definitely a senator, some kind of a delegate there in the background. We have that infamous line, "I was not elected to watch my people and suffer." She says, "I suggest new leadership is needed." And then we cut back over to the Organas, and where she says, "Then I move for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership." And it ends with the spokesperson, senator, whoever it is, from Alderaan standing up and saying, "Alderaan seconds the motion for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum." So I like the scene. Like I like the fact that it establishes the Organas, or the Organas, or Alderaan at least, as being one of the people that are just not putting up with a bunch of the crap that's happening, right? Like they're still fighting for justice and what's right and what's wrong way back when. It does something for the politics, I guess, as well. Like it just seems like it was weird that one senator could stand up and just vote to get rid of the chancellor, and there's no kind of quorum. There's not a second. They don't need a third. It was just like her opinion, and suddenly they took it to a vote, and you're out. I'm like, wow, that sucks. That seems pretty easy to get by. It establishes that no, there are at least more senators have to step forward. Now, how many more? Maybe it's 2. That still seems like a low number for me.
Well,
But
in the background of the movie, you can hear them say, vote now, vote now. So
yeah,
there
yeah.
were a number of them, but I'm with you. I think it makes sense for Alderaan to step up and do this because they're a peaceful state as well, much like Naboo presumably is, right? That
Mm-hmm.
I won't say no weapons and things like that. I don't think that's fairly well established in many ways that they just don't, they're not warmongering in any kind of way. They tend to promote peace. And so that they would be the first to step up and say, we support them because this is just outright wrong. And again, to have a very clear picture of what's right and wrong and standing up and having the gusto to be able to do that and confront a potentially corrupt Senate and some of the injustices going on makes a lot of sense for Alderaan to be at the forefront of that. Now, having said all that, I don't know that this scene really adds a whole lot. So I think them cutting it, I think lingering on Padme throughout this speech, I actually liked quite a bit that it created a bit more of that tension of, oh, wow, she's actually going to go through it. The panning slowly around her. Again, it was in here too, but you don't cut away and you just keep some of those sequences. Now, I think the one thing I like about the scene, if it were to be left in, was when Chancellor Alorum falls back kind of defeated, you kind of feel a little bit more that some of these groups that maybe he supported or was friendly with have specifically called him out and said that we don't believe you should lead us anymore. And that starts to weigh on it. But I think it works in the theatrical version without all this too. So my vote is to Order 66, this one. You're on mute.
I said you vote no confidence in the scene.
I vote no confidence in this scene.
So here I pulled this up because it does say Bail Organa, and I don't know, does it say that in the Disney Plus version?
It does, yes.
So
that was supposed to be Bail Organa because Jimmy
Right.
Smits didn't sign on until much later.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I just wonder then too, I wonder if they cut this because they couldn't lock this guy in for a second movie, third movie. I don't know. There's something there. Maybe.
Well, I think it also just didn't work, and maybe they had started talking with Jimmy Smits. You never know quite when these things start to work out to where they decided that they weren't going to do that, but unclear.
Yeah. I'm going to say fix it and then just CGI Jimmy Smits into it. I mean, that's the Star Wars thing to do, right?
I don't understand these that are like dancing. Like some of the senators are dancing.
That
It
was in
just
the
seems-
original.
I know it was. It just seems solely inappropriate though. So I'm just commenting on it now.
Yeah. What kind of place do you think this is? All right. The
Yeah.
battle is over. That's the next one here.
This one is awful.
Yeah. Well, it's really rough too. I mean,
Well,
literally.
again, this is one you got to go watch the Disney Plus version. Like
Did they fix it?
The author did something to this scene to where he cut when they actually knocked the battle droid over and changed when the dialogue is. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they did that. Again, I think this is for copyright, trying to avoid some of it. But go watch the D Plus version. It's still pretty terrible. It's not very good. He basically says battle's over, and it's really wooden dialogue. And then he just literally
Pushes
takes
over.
his hand and pushes over the droid.
Yeah.
And it's very whitewashed out. The scene just it looks terrible.
Yeah. I don't know.
This needs to remain on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, we get this line from Padme now where she says, what was the line here? I thought I had it in there.
You have to go
Now,
back to the Senate.
Viceroy. What's that?
Oh, go ahead. You got it.
Oh, she says, now, Viceroy, you're going to have to go back to the Senate and explain all this.
Right, which they have a variation of that in like at the very end of it when he's getting back on the ship. So
Yeah.
I think that would have been redundant in that way, or maybe that scene wasn't there. Maybe they were deciding which one to put in, and then I'm glad the other one won out because this was terrible. This is pretty terrible.
Yeah. So that's an Order 66 as far as I'm concerned.
This one's interesting. Anakin's
Yeah.
return. Yeah,
Yeah. Rick Oley gets to do something other than point out the obvious, which
he
is all
actually
he
says
did.
he doesn't know something, right?
Right. He says, we're all accounted for. So who in the blazes flew that ship? And then he turns and Anakin was that, is this the author doing this again?
This is the author doing this again. Yeah,
Did they do it? Did they do anything like this on the,
they have it's like an animatic that they did put
Okay.
in there. So
Right.
this is actually probably an improvement over the D Plus version. It's at least cleaner, but
Yeah.
it's very out of place.
it's like a 2D thing.
Yeah.
But it's Anakin's Naboo fighter coming in. All the pilots are going up to see who it was that, saved everybody. And he takes the helmet off. His hair is all messed up. And he says, I'm not in trouble, am I? And that's just the end of it, right? So,
Yeah, in the D Plus version, you see a blue screen there instead of the hanger as well. So the author did that too. This was actually kind of cute and kind of funny. And it's somewhat reminiscent of A New Hope a little bit, So I don't know. I'm on the fence about this. I'd say fix it. Because I think
say
it kind
fix it too.
of closes it out and it's kind of cute and silly. I think it worked.
I'm just trying again. I'm trying to think like, does it pull like where do you slap this, and does it pull away from Qui-Gon's death or what we just saw? I don't know where this fits in the timing, with the editing. So
That's
maybe,
a great point. And it's not always about the scene might work, but maybe it just doesn't fit somewhere. So it would have been interesting to see where this was originally slotted to see if that made any kind of sense. That's a great point.
All right, the last two scenes, and they're not scenes that we have really for display. I just want to kind of talk about them. They're from the DVD behind the scenes section. There's a little interview I think with Rick McCollum and George Lucas, kind of closing out the segment of the DVD stuff or the deleted scenes, and they excuse me, they show some footage of more of the Naboo fight, the space battle, which I think. Honestly, and I said this when we were doing the top 3 moments, I said I felt like we needed more of that battle. I don't feel like we got enough of it. Agreed. And I never felt like we really got to know the pilots more than we should have. Like I couldn't name one pilot except Rick Oley, and all the other ones I could care less about. And that's very different. Like think about episode 4, we got to see them and they got to see them talking beforehand. There was just something there. We didn't get any of that. Now that's not consistent throughout the movies. I get it. But there was something more about this movie in particular that I wanted. And so just seeing more of the space battle and that sequence that we got to see was kind of cool. It looked like it was more of Anakin's Naboo fighter that was being chased by more of the Vulture droids or whatever battle droids or whatever they were. But I don't know. What did you think? Would you want to see that added in there? And do you think there's, they should have extended that, the battle sequence even further than what we did?
No, I agreed with you when we did the show. I think like having more space battles is always a plus because they just look so great. The red and the green lasers, it looks fantastic all the time. And they did a good job with this one too. Some of the scenes they had and some of the motion of the camera and what they were doing, I thought was interesting and fun. And I think it would have helped build out the space sequence to feel like there was a little bit more to it because it did feel a little bit rushed in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I need time with the pilots as much, although I see where you're coming from. We got to meet Porkins and Biggs. They had names, right? They kind of had names and little quirks to them. So it was interesting, right? But I think with this one, just even the sequence and the action part of it really did help enhance the scene quite a bit. I think they should fix that and put that back in. It's not much. It was really probably, I think it was like 10 seconds altogether.
Yeah.
But again, it just, that little bit extra helps bridge the gap and just extend those sequences just a touch.
Yeah. And I'm with you. Like, I would agree. Like it just, whatever they can add into that final battle on Naboo, it's above there in space. Add it all back in, as far as I'm concerned. All right, the last.
I'd be
scene,
curious
sorry.
to see how much time was spent in space versus with the Gungans versus in the palace, to see what the screen time was. And then I guess you also had the duel of the fates going on too. So I'm curious what the sequence is. I'm probably sure most of the time was spent, fighting with lightsabers, which is where it should be. But
yeah,
I think the space sequence probably got the short change out of all of that.
Oh yeah,
this would help remedy that problem.
I'd be surprised. I would venture to say that it was Naboo, Duel of Fates, and then Space Battle, probably in that order. I mean, probably pretty close as far as the first two go. But
we had so much going on. You had so much going on, Naboo. You had the outdoor fight with the Gungans, and you had the in the palace stuff, and then you had Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. So a lot going on. But I think the space sequence would have benefited from just a touch more, just a hair.
All right. Well, speaking of the Duel of Fate sequence, the last scene,
we can't get enough of this one,
right? Is just there's some more fighting. Again, it's not in the deleted scenes. It was in that in the special features section of the DVD. Again, it's transition. There's people. I think it's George Lucas or Rick McCollum. Somebody's talking over it while it's playing,
right?
And you see a sequence where Qui-Gon. And it looks finished, by the way. Like it doesn't look like it's rough or it looks completely done. Right. But you've got Darth Maul fighting Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. There's a moment there, and this is very short. I mean, it's like 10 seconds in total, so don't get too excited here.
Yeah, it's not really a sequence. It's more of they just kind of trimmed the film a little bit.
Yeah, but there's one point where Qui-Gon turns around. I'm sorry, Qui-Gon. Darth Maul turns around with his lightsaber and does kind of a move that backs Obi-Wan Kenobi off. Like he backs off, and at the same time, he quickly whips around and fights off Qui-Gon Jinn. So establishing that is kind of cool. But where this really kind of always stood in my mind was we get to see at the very end of the sequence, in the last literally 2 seconds, 1 second, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan do another kind of special force leap. I mean, they jump from like one of the bottom.
Well, Maul does it first. Yeah, Maul
does it and does a backflip at the very end of it.
Right.
And then you get to see these guys follow up, shoot up really high in the air. I don't know, probably 50, 60 feet up in the air and then land on the bridge with him. So just establishing that, or I guess showing more of what the Jedi can do and understanding how they do that. I mean, we should know that, I guess, because Obi-Wan does do that when he falls down and almost loses his lightsaber. He pulls himself back up. Qui-Gon and Darth Maul are fighting way up high. How did he get up there? We never really get to see it. But this definitely shows that they have those force abilities and the force jump, that, if you will, for, that we saw in video games and RPGs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I imagine they probably looked at this as a little bit redundant because that does come a little bit later, the Obi-Wan sequence that you had mentioned where he gets kicked off and then falls down and then he does a force jump back up. So maybe they thought that was just, we saw it once, we don't need to see it again type of thing. And they had to keep the Obi-Wan in there in order to distance themselves and then break Obi-Wan or break Qui-Gon. I keep calling Qui-Gon Obi-Wan tonight. But to break Qui-Gon and Darth Maul, sorry, car going by. To break them apart to get them into their own sequence, of course, there as well. So I think this probably was just a trim more than anything else, but I think this is one I would love to see finished and put back in. Yeah,
me too. Add it back in. I think it does enough. It does a lot for the scene, extends the scene, if nothing else, and we get to see them fighting, which is, we'd all wanted that battle to be, 20 minutes long, and that obviously.
And I do like this. I like you pointed out. I like the little step back that Obi-Wan has to do to avoid the slash by Darth Maul. So again, you do just get a little bit more of the fight in there. It was really neat.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, there's more. So there are other. So just as a quick aside, there's stuff in the novel that we'll cover when we get to the novelization with Lauren. And then there's stuff that I have, and I have not found it. I told Jonesy I was going to pull it out. I couldn't find it. I do have it though. But it is the episode 1. What is it? I can't remember the stinking name of it now.
Oh, it's a CD-ROM.
Yeah, it's a CD-ROM that came out around 99, and I'm trying. So I did. Let me back up. I did find it. However,
Phantom Menace Insider, I think.
Thank you. Phantom Menace Insider. I did find it. I'm trying to, this is crazy. I'm trying to install a virtual machine of Windows 95 on my computer and then mount a CD-ROM to that virtual machine for 95, which is a whole nother task in itself just to run it. And it's been a long process, and I haven't got it really to work yet. But if I can't get that, I'll figure out another way. But I want to be able to show some of the stuff that's on there, because there's a Watto's, there's a advertisement for Watto's place that you can watch on there.
Right.
But there's other scenes that were kind of cut out, and some behind the scenes stuff, not really necessarily deleted scenes, but there's some behind the scenes stuff that it would be interesting to look at. So there's other things that are still out there. I imagine there's tons and tons of footage that we've never seen, and maybe we'll see it at the 50th anniversary or sometime down the road. But there's no shortage, I would imagine, of stuff that was cut out. And this is just, in my opinion, probably just a small slice of what was actually cut out. This is what they were willing to show folks.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, fun show. Thank you guys for being here. I know you want to do some shout outs for the folks that joined us tonight.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, thanks for the download. If you'd like to come out for the live stream, cantinacast.com/YouTube, and you can join these fine people: Rita Reborn, Steph, One of Versus CPU, Music Train, Greg from the Rebel Base Card Podcast, Lauren, Alex, Jorge, Rebel Scum. All of you folks in the background, we see you out there too. Thanks so much for coming out. We do appreciate it. And we hope that our Patreon members will join us here in just a few minutes for our return of Tatooine Trading Post. It's been a while since we've done one, so we're going to do a Phantom Menace 25-year anniversary edition. So a little trip down memory lane of some of the things that we've acquired over the years and acquired back in 98, 99.
Or later. As the case may be for me.
Well, they were mostly released around that time, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they definitely were released in 99. I definitely have that, but some of the stuff I'm like, I don't remember buying that in 99. But all right. Yep. Thank you guys for joining us. And stick around for that show. Don't forget this week also, or next week, I should say, we've got Lauren and I will be doing some comic book coverage. We'll bring back the Way Station. We didn't get a chance to do it this week because of the delay, but we've still got a lot more still coming up down the road here, especially around the Phantom Menace 25th anniversary. And before you know it, we're going to be covering all the stuff that has to do with the Acolyte. So looking forward to all that. So, all right, guys, thanks so much. And we'll see you next time.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good fun stuff. But I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what. So that's your disclaimer.